You keep replaying the moment they stopped choosing you, not because you still want them, but because some part of you is still trying to understand why you weren't enough. You replay the conversations, the things you said, the things you should have said, and somewhere in your mind there's still a question. What if I had been different? What if you were more attractive, more patient, less emotional, more successful? Would they have stayed? But there's something you need to understand. That is the wrong question. Because the people who eventually make others regret losing them were never trying to make anyone regret losing them. They were simply done begging to be chosen. The deep dive. Think about the last time you tried desperately to make someone see your worth. You explained yourself, again and again. You sent the long message. You tried to prove that you cared. You showed them everything they were about to lose. And maybe you thought, if I can just make them understand, they'll come back. But they didn't. And the more you tried to become undeniable, the more invisible you became. Because when you constantly prove your value to someone, you accidentally teach them that your value is something they get to decide. That's where the trap begins. When you try to earn someone's regret, you are still living inside their frame. Their attention determines your mood. Their response determines your confidence. Their silence becomes something you need to fix. Every text becomes another attempt to control an outcome you don't actually control. Psychologists describe this as an external locus of control, when your sense of worth starts depending on something outside yourself, and your brain makes it even worse. Because the brain hates uncertainty. Sometimes it would rather experience pain than not know why the pain happened, so it keeps searching. One more explanation, one more message, one more apology, one more chance, one more version of you that might finally make them stay. But listen carefully. This isn't weakness. It's wiring. The reframe. You're not clingy. You're not broken. You're not too much. You're human. Your nervous system evolved to treat rejection as something serious. For most of human history, being abandoned by your group wasn't just emotionally painful. It could mean losing protection, food, shelter, safety. So when someone walks away today, your brain doesn't always understand that you're safe. It can react as if something essential has been taken from you. A relationship ends, a friendship fades, someone stops choosing you, and suddenly your entire nervous system screams, do something, text them, call them, explain, fix it, get them back. But sometimes, nothing needs to be fixed. Sometimes the alarm is simply old. It's an ancient survival system, reacting to a modern heartbreak. So don't hate yourself for panicking. Don't shame yourself for wanting to reach out. Just understand what is happening. Your brain is trying to protect you, even when there is nothing left to protect. The mechanism. Now here's the idea I want you to remember. Value is rarely announced. It's felt in absence. Think about light. When you're standing in a brightly lit room, you don't think about the light. You barely notice it. Because it's always there. Your brain adapts. It becomes normal. This is called habituation. The nervous system learns to stop paying attention to things that remain constant. But turn the light off, and suddenly, you notice. Your eyes search for it. You feel the darkness. And the strange thing is, the light didn't become more valuable when it disappeared. You simply became aware of its absence. That's how people can work too. When you're always available, always replying, always explaining, always trying to make things better, your presence can become invisible. Not because you weren't valuable, but because they never had to experience life without you. People don't always regret losing what was loud. Sometimes they regret losing what was quiet. The person who listened. The person who made ordinary days feel lighter. The person who was simply there. And sometimes you don't understand someone's value until their presence is no longer part of your routine. The framework. 1. Stop performing. Start withdrawing gracefully. Not to punish them, not to manipulate them, not to make them chase you, but because you finally understand. You don't need to audition for a place in someone's life. If you've already said what needed to be said, stop explaining. Stop sending paragraphs. Stop trying to create one final moment that changes everything. Say what is necessary. Then step back. Let silence exist. Because every time you chase, you erase the space in which someone could actually feel your absence. 2. Let consequences exist without narrating them. You don't need to say, "One day you'll miss me." You don't need to say, "You'll regret this." You don't need to announce what they're losing, because if they ever realize it, the realization has to belong to them. Let them connect the dots. Let them remember. Let them compare the silence to the presence they once took for granted. You don't need to be the narrator of your own absence. Just leave the space empty. 3. Build an identity they were never part of. This one matters most, because if your entire identity was built around them, losing them feels like losing yourself. So start rebuilding. Return to the things you stopped doing. Train, create, learn, travel, work, build something. Become obsessed with a goal that has nothing to do with whether they notice you, because slowly, your brain starts receiving rewards from somewhere else, not from their attention, not from their approval, but from your own competence, your own progress, your own life. And one day, you realize something strange. You weren't becoming someone they would regret losing. You were becoming someone you were proud not to lose. 4. Regulate the urge to reach out. Don't suppress it, because the urge will come. Usually at night, when you're alone, when something reminds you of them, when you see their name, when you wonder if they're thinking about you. And you'll feel that familiar impulse. Just send one message. Don't fight the feeling. Just don't obey it. Write the message. Say everything. Then put the phone down. Watch the urge rise and fall. Because every time you feel something without immediately acting on it, you teach your brain something powerful. I can survive this feeling. And eventually, the feeling stops controlling you. 5. Let your calm become the proof. There is something powerful about someone who no longer needs to react. No dramatic goodbye, no revenge, no performance, no desperate attempt to be seen. Just calm. Because when you stop reacting, you stop feeding the emotional cycle. The arguments disappear. The explanations disappear. The constant emotional charge disappears. And suddenly, there is nothing left to fight, nothing left to prove, nothing left to chase. Sometimes the version of you that says nothing speaks louder than every goodbye you could have written. Integration. Think about the ocean. Just before a massive wave arrives, the water pulls away from the shore. For a moment, it looks like retreat, like nothing is happening. But underneath the surface, energy is gathering. That's what your withdrawal should be. Not punishment, not revenge, not a strategy to make them come back. A return to yourself. Because you were never supposed to spend your life convincing someone to recognize your value. You were supposed to live, to grow, to become, to experience things that have nothing to do with whether someone stayed. And maybe one day, they notice. Maybe they wonder where you went. Maybe they remember the things they once ignored. Maybe they finally understand what your presence meant. Or maybe they don't. And here's where the real freedom begins. You stop needing them to. The close. You don't have to make anyone regret losing you. You don't have to become more attractive, more successful, more distant, more mysterious. Just to prove that they made a mistake. You don't have to build a case for your worth, because your worth was never on trial. You only have to stop performing it, long enough for silence to reveal what your presence couldn't. Some people will realize what they lost. Others never will. Some will come back, some won't. Some will remember you for years. Others will move on as if you were never there. And you have to be okay with all of it. Because your healing cannot depend on someone else's realization. Your life cannot wait for their regret. And your worth cannot require their return. So let them go. Let the silence speak. Let the distance exist. Let yourself become someone you don't need anyone else to validate. Because eventually, you'll stop asking, how do I make them regret losing me? And you'll start asking something far more important. Why was I ever willing to lose myself, just to make someone stay? And that's when everything changes. You're not building a case anymore. You're not waiting for a verdict. You're not trying to be chosen. You're just finally living your life.